This is Clint Griest. This is a MazdaSpeed6 you can see the letters right here, E Street Prepared. If you are familiar at all with national level SCCA solo autocrossing, you know that E Street Prepared is usually a class you see on the side of a V8 powered muscle car. It's the Camaro class, it's the Mustang class, and this is about as far as you can get from a Camaro or a Mustang as I can possibly imagine. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of this car and how you ended up in being a favorite to possibly contend for a championship in 2018 in something that is decidedly not a Mustang or a Camaro.
Sure. We've been developing the car for about 5 years. Bought it in 2013 without the intent of autocrossing it at all, and ended up taking it to some local autocrosses and doing pretty well in it. So that kicked off the development. We started with the suspension. They're extremely soft from the factory. So we picked up some Bilsteins, converted those to coilovers, worked with Fat Cat Motorsports on the damping, and had them do some custom valving for that. So we had those on in mid-2014, and that really livened up the car. So from there, we have some custom parts. I've turned some bushings myself. I engineered the rear sway bar on the car. And we've just been trying to balance it out over the years. We've gone bigger and bigger every year on the tires. We ran a 285 last year, and the muscle cars made us really jealous. So we bumped up to a 335 this year. And this year, we've been all over the country. We've done, four champ tours, a match tour, and a pro solo, and now we're at year-end nationals.
So I'm a former Speed 3 owner myself. You were saying you got your start in Speed 3s, you got the sticker back here.
Yeah.
And one thing I loved about that car was how easy it was to make a lot of power with some very simple bolt-ons. This class, you're kind of limited as to what you can do engine-wise. You're basically anything outside the engine block and heads is open in Street Prepared. How much power are you able to make, and how are you doing it with this particular car?
So it's like you said, it's intake bolt-ons, exhaust bolt-ons, what the community calls fully bolted, E85 and a tune. I've been tuning these cars for about 10 years. The car makes about 260 horsepower, so we're way down relative to the class. But it makes 260 horsepower over the entire rev range, and that's really where it shines because we dig out of corners so well.
What's the car weigh?
3250.
So that's actually on the light side for that class. There's probably a couple of pretty light Mustangs in that class, but anything modern is a 3,600 pound car in that class.
Yeah, the new Mustangs are all a little bit heavier. The F-body Camaros, which are still prevalent in the class and pretty competitive, are about the same weight, a little bit lighter actually.
So I've driven these cars before. They're good handling sports sedans, but they're not pony cars, obviously. What did it take to actually make this thing? How much development time was there in choosing the right spring rates, choosing the right, the getting enough camber out of the front of these things? I know that's a challenge as well. If it's anything like the 3. So what's your development curve been like?
Hundreds and hundreds of hours in the garage with my fiance Johanna, measuring camber curves and bump steer curves and motion ratios, your typical development work. And then really taking an analytical standpoint and just working through the numbers and setting the car up by the numbers. And we've gotten to a point with that where we can make multiple changes at one time and, we'll nail it pretty much right out of the gate. So we've gotten the car down to a science, you could say. And that has really helped us out. And we've been going higher and higher on spring rates over the years, maintaining flat ride, if anybody's familiar with that. That's been a big part of it.
How about durability? These cars, they're actually getting a little bit rare now, and being an all-wheel drive car, it's putting a lot of stress in driveline parts. Anything you're chasing as far as durability?
The biggest thing with these cars in general is the transfer case. And we're taking advantage of the new street-prepared reliability rules by running billet aluminum bearing caps in the transfer case. That's really the biggest thing. We do have DSS axles in the rear of the car, and aside from that, the drivetrain's pretty much stock.
So these are, in my world anyway, these are almost classics at this point. They were so rare. It was such an unusual car that I don't think we appreciated at the time. Have you heard from anybody else, like in the Mazda racing community? What's their view of what you're doing with the car? Have you heard from any Mazda pro teams that have like where does this thing fit into Mazda racing lore?
It doesn't really fit in anywhere. No one ever raced one of these. We're definitely the only ones campaigning this car. And I mean, generally, just overwhelming support. Everybody loves the car. It's got the aggressive look to it, and yeah, everybody just comes up and says they love the car.
What's it like to drive? Is it fairly neutral now? Is it like a typical pushy front wheel drive car? Or how hard are you working those front tires?
Honestly, this year we got the dampers reworked by Fat Cat again this year for some new spring rates, and I would say the car is easier to drive than it has ever been. It is still front-wheel drive based and a little bit understeery if you're hammering out of corners and whatnot. But if you ask it to oversteer, it will. But it's easy to drive.
Clint Griest, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck this week. And his day job, engineering for Fiat Chrysler, so a member of the automotive community, and it's a pleasure to have you here. I've been waiting for a while to see this thing in person. I'm glad I finally got the chance. Thanks very much to Clint Griest.